Today we're going to take a look at the Andar ASPEN iPhone case, and this is a really interesting case that I'm very excited to talk about because it sits at a really interesting spot in the iPhone leather case market. Andar has really taken a middle-of-the-road approach to building a leather iPhone case. It's a pretty good case that looks pretty nice and does a pretty good job of protecting itself against drops. So this case is made out of top grain leather. It's finished with oil wax, and aside from that, we don't know a whole lot about the finish. The buttons themselves are made out of an alloy metal, and the case is cut out at the bottom to expose the charging port. Now, having used this case for a couple months, one of the things that I found out quickly was that you have to let this case sit on your phone for a good couple of hours right when you get it to let the leather stretch out. I tried using this case right out of the box and I found that some of the buttons didn't line up, and that was just because the leather hadn't fully formed to my phone yet. And so after about an hour, those problems went away and the buttons worked perfectly. Speaking of the buttons themselves, using them is an absolute pleasure. Once they were worn in, I would say they're almost as good as what Bullstrap is doing. And that's no small feat. I think most people take buttons for granted, but a lot of case manufacturers get that wrong with really stiff and unpleasant buttons. Andar has really knocked it out of the park with this. In terms of durability, this is a pretty durable iPhone case. Now, we all know with leather phone cases, the trick is how well the case itself survives drops. Most cases do a pretty good job of protecting your phone, but the Andar iPhone case actually does a pretty good job of surviving drops itself. I've dropped this phone a good 5 or 6 times in the 2 months that I've had it, and the only real damage I've seen is the phone being a little discolored in the corners where I've dropped it. There are no chunks of leather that have come out of the phone or anything like that. Now, I wouldn't give this the same grade of protection as the Nomad, but I'd be pretty confident this case will survive if it's dropped in an indoor floor or somewhere similar. And then in terms of protecting your iPhone, I think this does a really good job. I haven't noticed any additional cracks to my iPhone as a result of dropping this phone while this case has been on. I know some people are going to talk about this extra lip that's missing from the phone, but in my experience, when a phone drop occurs, it's usually on the back 4 corners. The phone usually doesn't drop on one of these front corners, from what I've tested. Let's talk about quality of leather, which is kind of the biggest sticking point for me personally with this case. I mentioned earlier that we don't know a whole lot about how this phone case is finished, but whatever Andar is doing, it's not very conducive to patina. With the Bullstrap and with the Nomad, those cases patinaed very quickly. I noticed the discoloration and that nice smoother change in texture after only a couple months of using those phone cases. Not so with the Andar phone case. It still looks nice and pristine, almost as nice as when I took the phone case out of the box for the first time. And for some people, that's going to be a really attractive feature. For me personally, I'm hoping for a little bit more of a worn-in feel after I've used my phone for a couple months. But in my opinion, that's a very minor ding against this phone case. For me personally, I think this is a pretty solid phone case at about the $50 to $60 price point. If you're looking for a case that's going to look exactly like it does out of the box and you always want it to feel like it did when you first put it on your phone, I think the Andar ASPEN is a really solid option. If you're looking for a case that's going to patina a little bit more, I think Bullstrap and Nomad offer better options depending on what you're looking for in terms of looks versus protection. But if those things don't matter to you and you just want something that's going to look like new leather every time you pull it out of the box, I don't think you can go wrong with the Andar ASPEN case.